This is Vin here from the Diamond Geezers, your gang green geezer here with episode 33. Thank you everyone for liking and subscribing. Having a lot of fun doing this with you guys. Jump right in and show you what the topics we'll be discussing today. If it actually will pop up on my screen here. And of course it won't. And there we go. So what we're going to talk about, Jets hire a new offensive coordinator and finalize their entire revamped coaching staff, or almost entirely revamped coaching staff. Some news and notes from the week. Talk about voided contracts. That was something that I didn't know was on the horizon. And what was new this week, Michael Clemens' uncertain future with the team. And of course, mock draft season continues, so we'll get into talking about that as well. I did my first mock draft. I went straight through, didn't make any trades or anything like that. Just picked whatever Jets picked, the Jets picks were, and I'll cover those, and we'll talk about those later on in the podcast. The Jets' new coaching staff. Obviously, let's start off with offensive coordinator. Actually, you know what? Let me list through the coaches here. Frank Reich, Seth Ryan, Frank Reich, offensive coordinator, Seth Ryan, passing game coordinator, Bill Musgrave, QB coach, Al Netter, offensive line coach. These are who I'm listing. These are all the new coaches. Alfredo Roberts, tight end coach, Thomas Merkel, the offensive assistant QB coach, Matt Sargent, he's an offensive assistant. On the defensive side of the ball, we talked about Brian Duger, defensive coordinator, Carl Dunbar, defensive line coach, Ben Bowling, linebackers coach, Ryan Slowick, the coach of the safeties, Ronald Booker, defensive assistant, nickel coach, and Colin Bauer, defensive assistant. Let me talk about these. A lot of these hires are very important. I want to get this out of the way. This coaching staff is leaps and bounds better than the coaching staff that the Jets finished the season with or started the season with last year. A lot of people are out there saying, well, why didn't Aaron Glenn do this last year? I don't know. And personally, I don't care because I can't go back and figure out why he did what he did when he was hired. Who the hell knows why he did what he did? It's not helpful now to talk about it because it's over. We lived through a dreadful 3-14 season. It was one of the worst seasons, and I've been a fan for over 40 years. It's one of the worst seasons I've ever had to live through. Forget from a record standpoint, just from what you saw in the field. Just the level of ineptitude that might be the worst ever, but it's definitely right up there. So let's focus on the offensive side of the ball. They're knocking Reich, they're knocking Musgrave. They're obviously what they're saying. These guys are old heads. They're not with it. They've been around a long time and they've had some success, but not a tremendous amount of success. Let's talk about Frank Reich. They've had success. They've been successful, and they're better than what we had last year. Now, at the end of the day, you're not going to get the cream of the crop from the coordinator and other coaching positions because of what you are and who you currently are as a team and as a franchise. That's just the way it is. It was that way last year when the coaching cycle started. Everybody thought you'd get Ben Johnson, Liam. Never going to happen. You were never going to get the top level guys. You're going to get the next level down, or maybe even 2 levels down. Frank Reich, go back to he obviously everybody knows he was a former quarterback, NFL quarterback. He had success running the offense in Philly. He had success as a head coach with the Colts when they had Andrew Luck. And when Andrew Luck abruptly retired, he still was able to pivot and be successful with an aging Matt Ryan. Obviously, everybody points right to the Carolina gig where we've touched upon this. He didn't want Bryce Young. They drafted Bryce Young. He wanted someone else, and that's just the way it went. One and done. I think he didn't hide the fact that he didn't want Bryce Young. I believe Bryce Young, when he got hurt at some point that season, he brought in Andy Dalton, and he had Andy Dalton go very pass heavy. And I think that was Frank Reich's way of saying to the brass, this is what I want. This is the type of quarterback I wanted in our system. Not necessarily Dalton, but someone of this stature, not a smaller, maybe mobile quarterback. So CJ Stroud, that was the quarterback that he wanted. It obviously the Texans took. So he has shown he has been successful. He has been able to deal with again with the abrupt luck retirement. He had to pivot and then deal with how that what the offense was going to look like now with your franchise quarterback no longer there. What I think what the Reich hiring will speak to is, do the Jets? I think this should uh, almost solidify the Jets will either bring back Brees Hall, or I know people talk about potentially signing Kenneth Walker, who the MVP of the Super Bowl, who's also a free agent. I think they'll lean towards bringing Brees back because he's a known quantity. You know what you have in him. I know some people talk about his demeanor and his facial expressions and his attitude. Look, man, I don't know how any of us would react. I know you were saying with pros, you're supposed to act a certain way. You're getting paid. That's your job. But when you're going through it year after year after year, I don't know what my face would look like on the sideline or on the field or when I'm speaking to reporters if you're constantly asking the same questions over and over again. If the Jets let him walk and their simple solution is, we got Braylon Allen coming back, we got Isaiah Davis, we'll draft a running back, and this draft class is not particularly deep at running back. I doubt they're taking Jeremiah Love in the first round. They shouldn't take him too, and I doubt he'll be there at 16 when they next pick in the first round. So what are you going to do? I know he's listed as a free agent, and a lot of people have the Chiefs signing him or because they were targeting him at the trade deadline. But that actually is something that is telling me that the Jets should bring him back or are going to bring him back. Because if you plan on letting him walk after the season, because they can also they can either tag him or they can put a transition tag on him, which would allow someone to make him a contract offer. But I believe it allows the Jets the right of first refusal before he walks away. So I think they're going to, I think if they let him walk for nothing, it doesn't make any sense why they didn't deal him for something at the trade deadline. If they let him walk for nothing, this is going to be egg on the face of Muji and Glenn in the organization, simply because if your plan was not to bring him back, then just move him. If they were offering you I know they wanted a third rounder, but if they were offering you a fourth or fifth, then just take it if your plan was to let him walk the whole time. If your plan is to bring him back, and again, I think under Frank Reich, and we could also touch upon who the Jets might bring in as a quarterback. Not a lot out there. We'll touch upon that when we get to the news and notes a little bit. But I think having Brees Hall in a strong running game, plays right into Frank Reich's strengths. I think Brees Hall will have a Pro Bowl, if not potentially an All-Pro season with Frank Reich as the offensive coordinator. Now, I know it will definitely depend on who they bring in to be the quarterback for the 2026 season, but they have a strong offensive line. I believe that they will further solidify that offensive line through free agency and the draft. They already looks like, again, the bookend tackles that they have. So Frank Reich will lean on the running game heavily. That's his forte. And I think that leans to Brees Hall coming back to the Jets. Or if not Hall, I want to see the pivot. Is it a pivot to a Kenneth Walker? I haven't gone through the free agent class yet because until the franchise tags are slapped on these players, it's kind of useless because a lot of times the top guys listed at this point come off the list because they'll wind up getting tagged before free agency actually starts. The next one is to touch upon Bill Musgrave. Now, my trepidation when I say his name is not him as a coach. It's a lot of his success, and there's a specific quarterback who had his best years under him, and that was Derek Carr. Now, I know a lot of Jets fans, look, if the Jets sign Carr, First of all, you can't. I'm sorry, you can't. You have to trade for Carr. My apologies. The Saints still own his rights. So unless if they come at you for a third round or fourth round, adios, walk away. Not necessary. I wouldn't give maybe a fifth. Most likely, I'll give you a sixth, a seventh, and maybe it might be a sixth or seventh in 2027. If they want anything more than that, let him walk. You talk about a 34-year-old quarterback, soon to be 35, coming off a shoulder injury. I don't care how he's throwing. I don't care how well he knows Aaron Glenn or whatever their relationship is. If the Jets right now, beggars can't be choosers. There is no, unless you're going to go all in on Malik Willis. And I don't even know really what he is. I know he showed development in Green Bay, but we don't know what he is. We have no idea. It's not like this is Joe Burrow hit the market and now you throw the Brinks truck at him and say, come save our franchise. There's nobody out there, at least on paper, that shows that they are that. So I think that, again, I've said this, the Jets should go the Giants route, bring in two veteran quarterbacks. I have no problem if they brought in a Derek Carr and a Mariota. That wouldn't bother me. And then maybe in this draft, you'll draft a young quarterback at some point in the draft to potentially be developed by a Musgrave and mentored by these two veteran quarterbacks. But Musgrave, and the same thing with Reich. The thing that you want is you can't. First of all, you can't have a quarterbacks coach we had last year in Charles London. That was a former running back. I mean, what are we doing? I don't understand that. It's like, oh, this guy was a great quarterback. Let's make him a defensive line coach. I didn't get that. I never got it. And look, if Glenn is simply righting his wrongs after a shameful season, so be it, because he's not going to get a chance again. If he has a similar season, he won't get a chance to reboot in 2027. But with these coaches, and especially, and we'll get to in a second, with Glenn going to take a more active role on the defensive side, calling plays, you need guys who have been there, done that on the offensive side of the ball. You need Reich is essentially going to be the head coach of the offense. So you need someone who, when the situation arises, he's been there, he's done it. Not only has he been there and done it as a player in Reich, he's been there and done it as a coach. So they're going to be running that side of the ball. You need that. It can't be where you're approaching certain situations and now you're blowing through timeouts because nobody knows what they're doing because, oh my God, I haven't seen this before. What do I do? And now you're getting into play late where you're either having a delay game, you're blowing through your timeouts, or worse, you get the play in late, you snap it late, and the play gets blown up. And how many times, Jets fans, have we seen that one where they're snapping it at 1 or just about at 0, and the play it's blown up from the snap? You can't have that. You can't be successful if even the better teams can't be successful with that. The teams that are struggling or trying to get there, even more so, they can't go that route. So I like what they're bringing in. I like what the experience they brought in with Reich and Musgrave. Seth Ryan, Rex Ryan's son, love it as a story, but love it even more because of what he brings to the table with his innovative play calling. Even Ben Johnson gave him kudos as someone that he would turn to help develop those gadget plays and innovative offensive plays that Detroit and now Chicago is known for under Ben Johnson. Now the Jets are bringing in Seth Ryan to do that. I like that. That's the key. You're blending in some of the experience, and you're blending that with youth. So you got the experience with the innovation. If those two can marry together well, I'm not saying the Jet. All of a sudden it's playoffs, deep run. But if you can see a team that looks like they're, the ship has turned and heading in the right direction for what should be a big 2027 offseason and draft. At this point, that's all we can ask for as Jets fans. Anything more than that is just blind optimism. And this, we got a few months before we get to the blind optimism part. Free agency will start soon, and that's our time as the Jet fans. We win the offseason, but I want us to be quiet, humble, do well, and start to win during the season. That's what the Jet fans really want. And then this leads me to Alfredo Roberts, very experienced tight ends coach. We got Mason Taylor, Jeremy Ruckert. There's some solid tight ends in the free agent class, and there's some pretty good tight ends in the draft. So bringing in someone who developed, look, in last stop in Pittsburgh, Fryermuth, Washington. So now he at one point coached Kellen Winslow. So you're bringing in, again, a lot of experience from that side of the ball, which is going to be paramount with Glenn taking more of an active role in the play calling on the defensive side. On the defensive side, Carl Dunbar mentioned this. That's a huge, huge. I think that's the biggest signing of maybe of all the coaches, but specifically on the defensive side of the ball, because this is he had a lot of success under the Jets when he was defensive line coach under Rex back in 2012 to 2014, and most recently coaching the Steelers, I believe, for the past 7-8 years with TJ Watt and Hayward. And I think that really could bode well for McDonald. Jermaine Johnson, if he stays, if they don't move him in the deal for someone else, maybe if JJ's not a fit for the defense, the scheme that they're looking to put in. If that's the case, not sure why they didn't move him at the deadline. But in any event, if these guys stay, because to me, especially on the defensive side of the ball, you're really bereft of talent on that side of the ball. So just if you get a guy like Dunbar who can take what you have, I think Jawan Briggs, Pro Bowl, I think he might be a Pro Bowler under this guy, maybe even as early as next year. You got Phillips. You're definitely going to be going defense, edge, and defensive tackle in this draft. And you might do it with your first two picks in this upcoming draft. You definitely will do it within your first 4 picks of the draft. Someone like Dunbar who could develop what you have and what you're bringing into bring back that strength to the team, which they had somewhat under Rex. They had it somewhat under Saleh. Obviously, different philosophy, small alignment under Saleh. But I think that's a huge, huge signing. Ben Bowling, the linebackers coach. Chances are anybody who's coaching is maybe not even going to be on the team yet. And we'll touch upon Quincy's status in a second. But Jamien Sherwood, I don't know if he fits what the Jets are trying to do. Maybe they'll try to move him for a 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick. Who knows what the offseason will hold, but I think the Jets will sign a linebacker or 2. They'll probably draft at least 1 linebacker, probably 2 in the upcoming draft. So it comes from the Texans under DeMeco Ryans. Very strong defense, one of the best defenses in the league year over year. And so he's going to bring some of that experience to the Jets and coaching their linebackers. And Ryan Slowick, who was in Miami last year, with a bunch of no-names. He'll be the safeties coach. A bunch of no-names. And that's another one who there's maybe one safety, Malachi Moore, who might be starting next year. But likely the bulk of who he'll be coaching is currently not on the team at this point. And again, Jets will most likely draft at least 1 safety and probably sign a safety this offseason as well. But Slowick, comes from a football family. He's the son of Bobby Slowick. He did well last year in terms of what Miami had. If you look at Miami's secondary, it's a who's who of who. So, and he, to have them be respectable as they were, that speaks volumes. And we just look to bring, again, what you're looking to bring is, and this is sad that the Jets organization, the team it's just a level of competency to what you're doing on the field. That's it. And we're not speaking. That's kind of where I am. It's like, yes, we know there's what you hope for and what we've been wishing for forever. But just look like you don't want to be the low-hanging fruit, the laughing stock, the easy target for the lowbrow shots that people take at you. If you once you start showing that level of competency on the field, and that comes from the coaching. That's just the way it goes. If you have incompetent coaching, sooner or later that's going to show up on the field. And unfortunately for the Jets, it's been showing up for far too long. So my feeling is, and my hope is, that based on the level of experience and the combination of experience and youth that they've brought together with this new coaching, that Aaron Glenn has brought together with this new coaching staff, the hope is that it will now start to translate into W's and competency on the field. The next thing I want to jump into, and we'll see, guys, we'll see, and I'll be here with you guys every step of the way. Voided contracts and Michael Clemens' future. And I mentioned Clemens when I was talking about Dunbar because I'm not sure if Clemens will be on the team. But first thing I want to talk about is the voided contracts. John Simpson, Quincy Williams, Tyrod Taylor, Andre Cisco. Their contracts are voided or set to about to void. I think they actually did void. It might have been Friday that they voided, leaving approximately a little over $13 million in dead cap space for this upcoming season. And simply how this happens, this is something I learned from myself. Team structure deals in this way. It's done in a way to kick the salary cap hits down the road. Now, if it's done right, like it's done by the good teams, it helps you keep as many good players on your team at any one given time. But when you do it like the Jets have done it, then what you just have is a bunch of dead cap space, which I believe the Jets' dead cap space going into this season is somewhere around $90 million, which is just absurd. I know a lot of that's coming from it's coming from Aaron Rodgers. I think this is last year, and the anticipation of Justin Fields getting cut, and he'll have his dead money on the cap, and then this almost a little over 13 million going on. It's just, and the thing is with these voided contracts, as soon as they void out, the bill comes due in that year. So all these, even though Simpson signed a 5-year deal, it was set to void after year 2, which it did. Now, might the Jets bring him back? We'll see. Do the Jets go again? We'll touch upon that when free agency is getting closer, or will they try to bring AVT back on a kind of prove it contract? We'll see how that goes. And Michael Clemens' future, he's been so frustrating as a player because every so often he shows flashes, but then just the dunce cap moves that he makes, the late hits, the unsportsmanlike penalties, just the bonehead, then go. That's just, and then not setting the edge. The bonehead plays are the unsportsmanlikes and the late hit and just all that. But then just the fundamentals, the X's and O's, the not setting the edge on the run where he overcommits on a ball fake and he's eaten up inside, and either the quarterback or the running back just easily jogs right around him for a first down or a touchdown. So with Michael Clemens, I don't know what the plan is for him. I don't know. I think the fans, to a certain extent, have seen enough from him to say, we can't have that. We can't have that, and hope you coach it out of him. He's been around too long already. Now, could these guys coach it out of him? Maybe with the experience they have, they can. But if I'm the Jets at this point, you got it. While you have to take some shots because you're just not going to be able to bring in everyone you want. You also have to try to get as many sure things and known commodities and positive known commodities, not negative. I'm not sure if he's back with the team next year. But we'll see how that goes as the offseason continues. Mock draft season. Like I said, most Jet fans, this probably already started for you. Excuse me while I take a sip of water. This probably already started for us around Halloween, but now it's in full swing. And Connor Rogers this week came out with his mock draft, and he and I are on the same page with the first pick. He likes David Bailey, so do I, edge from Texas Tech. Almost every other mock that you see has Alvaro Reese from Ohio State, linebacker edge, going to the Jets. And the Alvaro Reese argument seems to be he's in the Micah Parsons. So Alvaro Reese is drawing the comparisons to Micah Parsons. But then as soon as they have the Jets taking Alvaro Reese in all of these mocks, I think Mel Kiper has him going there. Field Yates has him going there. That after they say he's in the Micah Parsons mode, they then say in the next breath, but he's not quite as talented as him. Okay. And then you have other people saying, well, I think by the time the process is done, the draft process, the combine and the pro days, that Alvaro Reese will separate himself to show he should be the number 2 pick. Let me ask you a question to the people saying that. Are there any more games to be played in college football? No. So what you're telling me is the tape that I already have on this guy and on all the players, that's not enough. It's what I see him do in shorts and a t-shirt at the combine and likely wearing the same at his pro day. That, not what I saw in competition. And again, this is not a knock on anybody. This is a little bit of a knock on the process because the Jets have been burned this way in the past, being I remember Golston caught up in the measurables, caught up in the physique and all that. Oh my God, look how far he jumped. Look how fast he ran for a man that size. Look how shitty he plays on the field. That on the field. Remember, that's where the games are played, on the field. There's enough tape on all of these players already to know what they are. Now, what David Bailey is, as far as I've seen and read about, you know what you get. Pass rush terror. Very polished pass, likely the most polished edge player in this draft. I think, my opinion, his floor will be 10 to 12 sacks a year. That's likely his floor every year. His ceiling could be somewhere 15 to 18 sacks a year. People are also saying about Alvaro Reese, we don't know what type of edge player he'll be in the pros. I have mentioned this in the past. It's a little alarming that when it was a step up in competition, when he was in the college football playoffs, he did not jump off the page. I believe he didn't get a sack in his last 6 games. Now, with certain development in a certain scheme, maybe. That's what you hear. He's got the measurables. He's got the talent. He's got the speed. He's got all that. But what did I see on the field from him when the competition stepped up? He wasn't there. The numbers weren't there. That team got thoroughly bounced. And I don't believe he had a sack in the last 6 games of the season. Bailey was good at Stanford, was great at Texas Tech. Now, they also had one of the top defenses in the nation last year. But I've said this, and I'll continue to say it. At number 2, you have to get an impact player. Not someone I hope will be an impact player or I hope will develop into this. Not that Reese coming in, if he's not getting 10 sacks a year, still wouldn't be impactful on any defense. But for me, I think the Jets need to go with the more of the known commodity with a pretty high floor and a really high ceiling. And if you can get a guy like David Bailey to be coached by Carl Dunbar, who coached guys, Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, etc. Maybe he gets to that ceiling a whole lot quicker and gets away from the floor a whole lot quicker than we anticipate. That's why I say Bailey is my first pick. That's where Connor Rogers went. He went with Boston, the wide receiver, for his second pick. Again, I didn't make any trades. I just took the picks as they came up. I took Makai Lemon, a wide receiver out of USC. I took in this first pick of the second round, AJ Halsey, safety out of LSU. 44th pick, Christian Miller, defensive tackle out of Georgia. Jacob Rodriguez with the 103rd pick, linebacker from Texas Tech. If you see here, I'm trying the Texas Tech thing. Like I said, they had the top defense in the nation. Georgia always great defensively. LSU always a solid team. Bring in talented people from talented programs. Don't always have to find the diamond in the rough. That's for the later rounds, or some other team who can afford to take a shot at those diamonds in the rough. You as the Jets can't. Go find talent from talented programs and bring that in to your team. Bring that into your locker room. And then that'll start to infect everybody else around them in a positive way. I took Thaddeus Dixon, cornerback, from North Carolina with the 175th pick. Jalen Farmer, offensive guard from Kentucky. The swing I took at quarterback was a late swing. I know everybody with the Hackenberg flashback. It was Drew Aller, quarterback from Penn State. I read an article this week. It might have been, I think it was an article where they talked about, or it might have been a post that someone put up about Bill Parcells, the types of quarterbacks that he would only draft, that he would want his ideal quarterback. Certain amount of starts in college, checking all these different boxes, over a certain age with a certain amount of starts. And the only quarterback I believe in this draft that meets that criteria is Drew Aller, quarterback out of Penn State. Now I picked him with the second to last pick. The last pick I took Sam Roush, tight end from Stanford. So that's why I went with my mock so far. It's my first mock. This is Gang Green Geezer mock draft 1.0 for the Jets. So you have David Bailey as their first pick, edge from Texas Tech. Makai Lemon, wide receiver, USC, second pick. AJ Halsey, safety, LSU with their third pick. Christian Miller, defensive tackle from Georgia with their fourth pick. Jacob Rodriguez, linebacker, Texas Tech with their fifth pick. Thaddeus Dixon, cornerback, North Carolina, their sixth pick. Jalen Farmer, offensive guard, Kentucky, seventh pick. Drew Aller, quarterback, Penn State. I don't know why. Maybe I'm stuffy. Corner and quarter coming out the same way. Quarterback, Penn State, and then Sam Roush with their last pick, tight end out of Stanford. If the Jets just did this again. It's my first mock. Free agency hasn't started. Once free agency is completed, this mock will likely change based on who the Jets sign in free agency. But so far, I like this mock personally because, first of all, it's my mock, so that's why I like it. Second, I like it because I didn't just go need. I didn't stretch. Simpson was gone at a certain point where I was going to take him, so that's the way that goes. But addressing edge, safety, linebacker, defensive tackle, the defensive backfield is not just safety but cornerbacks, offensive line with a guard, added to the tight end room. Took a quarterback who I don't know. He's got the measurables. And again, it was with a late pick. It was with pick 238. So if you get him in your system and you sign, as I mentioned, you sign two veteran quarterbacks and you get him in the system and he gets with Musgrave. And after a year, you see, nope, garbage, just another Christian Hackenberg or just not somebody we think is ever going to be able to lead this franchise to where we want it to go. Who cares? You wasted a late round pick on him. You have 3 first-round picks in 2027. Even if you win 6 or 7 games, you'll likely have, and I believe it's the Colts pick is one of the picks, and I believe is it the Cowboys pick? I think is the other pick. I forgot who the other first round pick is that they have, but they'll likely be able if there is a quarterback, they'll likely be within striking distance to maybe not get to the top of the draft. Depend if they have 6 or 7 wins, they probably won't have enough ammunition maybe to get to the top, or maybe they won't want to spend all that ammunition to get to the top, but they'll have enough because there's right now is a list of about 6 or 7 quarterbacks set to come out in next year's draft, and they'll be able to position themselves to get one of them. So that's my mock draft, my first mock draft 1.0 for the Gang Green Geezer. We'll continue to do these and talk about these as the weeks go on, because at this point, what the heck else is there to talk about? The combine starting soon. Free agency will be starting in a few weeks. Franchise tags, I believe the final day to apply a franchise tag, I think it's March 3rd or 4th, but I'll make sure I have that locked down for the next podcast. But again, I thank everybody for liking and subscribing. If there's anything specifically you want to ask me in the Chiron below, and that's the feed going below me, that's Geezer Pete from the Diamond Geezers taught me that's called the Chiron. So shout out to Pete. The Chiron going below, you'll see where you can subscribe at YouTube and see the videos on TikTok. But I also added my email to the Chiron. So if there's any questions that I'll do if I get enough questions, I'll do a mailbag episode for you guys. So again, I thank everybody for liking and subscribing. Appreciate the thumbs up that you guys give and the follows, because that allows other Jet fans to follow and find this podcast. And with that being said, thank you for all the likes, subscribes, and comments. Until next time, have a good one, everyone.